Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it's just past midnight on Tuesday, December 24th, which means it's Christmas Eve for me. It is, so that makes this the news for Monday, December the 23rd, 2024, day 1034 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, a major European capital city under siege from Russian aggression. And I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Steve Kennedy. Hey, PT. Hey, Fitz. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hey, Paul Smith. How's everybody doing tonight? Bro Dog. Hey, Cheyenne. Good evening, Jeff Robbins. How do you do? Darryl Roberts, how you living, man? Jason Willis starring. Nice to see you, pal. Hey, Steve with a V. Nightshade. Evening, everybody. Hey, Thomas Weber Jr. Benjamin, how do you do? Word up. Word up, Mick. How is everybody doing tonight? It was quite a weekend, I'll tell you. Hey, Mad Mike. And we do have a bunch of stuff to talk about. I want to take a look here real quick. Let me just see one thing. Who do I owe a live sponsorship to? Last night we had Ballerina. Or Friday, we had Ballerina. I'm behind on Ballerina. And Lars from Encino Tech is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Lars. There's my buddy Lars from Norway, and we'll talk about Norway tonight. Norway's come up with some money. So, ladies and gentlemen, hey, PH. Ladies and gentlemen, and other non-binary folks, how do you do? It is Monday, December 23rd for most of us, and this is the news from Ukraine, and we'll start with last night's missile and drone attack. Last night, we saw 72 drones of mixed type, according to the Air Force, directed from the Russian Federation at the territory of Ukraine. 47 of them shot down, another 25 taken out with active countermeasures, for a 100% interception rate. The job that the Ukrainian armed forces and mobile defense units are doing in protecting the skies is extraordinary. This is not the first 100% interception rate we've had in the last week. Now, it's not even the second in the last week. Another unbelievable statistic. Yesterday, the Russians lost 1,990 people. Friday, it was a record-breaking 2,030. Some of the highest casualties of the war, daily casualty rates of the war, have been recorded the last week. And this is very much being driven by Kursk and the Kursk offensive. The Korean soldiers are being mowed down. There's just two other ways about it. You know, when we first started seeing the North Koreans engage in combat in Kursk about 10 days ago, there were initial reports of just terrible losses from the North Koreans. But everybody was quoting figures like 30 and 50. Well, a week later, they're saying it's 3,000. Nearly a third of the entire first wave of Korean soldiery sent to Ukraine or sent to Russia have been eliminated, either KIA or WIA. And I knew it had to be a bigger number than they were saying because I've watched the videos. I've seen them running across open fields, exposed to HIMARS strikes and cluster munitions. And it's not good. Thanks, Mrs. Toad. It's not good. So we'll talk more about that in a second. But again, 1,990 taken off the battlefield yesterday. That's inching the daily average for December toward 2,000. Yeah, Dean, not only should they have stayed home, but the next 11,000 that are just being mobilized now and will shortly be on their way, they should stay home too. But they're not going to. Because Kim Jong-un puts $315 million in cash in his pocket for every 11,000 men he sends to die for Russia. That's the reality of this thing. Kim doesn't expect those guys to come home. Kim's not worried about the losses. He's putting $315 million in his pocket for every 11,000 sacrifices he makes to his little tin god, Vladimir Putin. That's the world we're living in. Okay, so let's start with some international happenings, and we'll start with the United States. President Trump has said that President Putin says he wants to meet with me as soon as possible. So we have to wait for this, but we need to end that horrible, horrible war. Now, this is the confusion of dealing with the Trump and Putin camps. You don't know what's true because Trump's people are saying that he had a conversation with Vladimir Putin on the phone the Thursday after the election. Vladimir Putin's people deny that any such call ever took place. But Trump is saying this, that he talked to Putin and Putin says he wants to meet as soon as possible. Where they could possibly meet, I cannot even begin to imagine. There's no way in hell that Vladimir Putin is coming to the United States. There's no way in hell that Donald Trump is going to Russia. So where the fuck do they meet? Istanbul? Kazakhstan? Can you see Trump going to Kazakhstan? I don't think so. Trump went on to say quite incorrectly, quote unquote, millions of soldiers have died. Now look, it's bad over here. There's real death and destruction, but not millions of soldiers. That is not a thing. If that were a thing, this war would be over. He went on to say we've got to stop it. It's ridiculous, something he and I finally agree on. That war would never have happened if I was president. He said the words, Putin invaded Ukraine 2 years before he took the White House. For years, Putin was saving up ammunition, cash, and gold to ride this thing out. And you mean to tell me that you think the world would be a different place? Give me a fucking break. Now, according to the Financial Times in a report shared on Friday, Trump has said that he intends to maintain supplies of American weapons to Ukraine after taking office. Now, look, we don't have any idea what Trump is going to do. It is my guess that what he will do is send very, very small amounts, not enough to fight this war. That's my guess. Unless he thinks that Putin is backstabbing him or using him as a patsy. If he gets disrespected by Vladimir Putin, or if Vladimir Putin gets in the way of his Nobel Peace Prize, which is what it's all about for him, right? It's all about what's in it for me. And what Donald Trump wants out of this is a Nobel Peace Prize. And he's been nominated for one. Did you know that? A Ukrainian member of parliament nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. So the Ukrainians are helping him get what he wants. If Russia doesn't take his deal, they will be getting in his way. At that point, it could be tomahawks and JSAMs for everybody. Just load the country up and let them defend themselves, because that is what Ukraine is doing. It's defending itself. Now, we saw a really terrible example of groveling before dear leader in the form of Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, who, after last week threatening a serious conflict with Ukraine if Ukraine stops their cheap Russian gas, he unexpectedly took a trip to Moscow. In regard to this, Zelensky said, Slovakia has to understand that the discounts they get on gas from Russia are not free. They are paid for with sovereignty and shadow schemes. And I thought that was a beautiful turn of phrase. They are paid for with sovereignty and shadow schemes. Because that is exactly what happens when you make a deal with that particular devil. Now, for my part, I have no sympathy for Fico or for Orban. There's 4 countries that are principally affected by this gas line shutdown, right? Right, there's a gas pipeline through Ukraine. The transit agreement on it ends January 1st, and the Ukrainians are not renewing it. Who can blame them? The money goes right into the war effort to destroy them. Why wouldn't they want it shut off? And all the countries, Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, and Moldova, 5 countries, Czech Republic too, those 5 countries that depend on that gas, they've all had 3 years to make other arrangements. The Czechs are getting gas from the Transalpine pipeline now, right? They've switched over. The Austrians have saved up gas. Every gas reservoir is full, and they're looking at alternative supplies. The Moldovans got LNG at port, right? So everybody there knew this was coming for 3 years, and competent leadership adjusted for it. Incompetent leadership, the ass kissers from Bucharest and Slovakia, they did not. Hungary and Slovakia have remained dependent on the Russian gas and still are. Transnistria is not a country. We can talk about that separately in the Q&A, but forget about that for now. It's an occupied territory. So, Fico in Russia, undoubtedly, the conversation was about the supply of Slovakia with gas, after Kyiv confirmed that it would not renew the Russian gas transit agreement when it expires the 1st of January. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for these 5 virtually landlocked countries inside of Europe that have depended on this cheap gas from Russia. However, the Czech foreign minister said the words, "We don't grovel before a mass murderer." Damn right you don't. It doesn't do you any good. They already see you as something less than human. Why give them more reason to disdain you? The president of Lithuania asked the question, how cheap is your love that you could go to Moscow, and he made an interesting play on words that almost translates to English, and get all gassed up for a war criminal, which I thought was an interesting way of putting it. But clear disdain from the Czech foreign minister and the president of Lithuania for this show of abjection, of groveling, of begging from Fico to the dear leader Putin in the Kremlin. Just so disappointing. Today is the 26th day of protests in Georgia. And the Georgian protests continue with 100,000 people in the street of Tbilisi, squaring off against the police. However, we have not seen the violence the last few nights that we saw earlier. That could be because a number of members of the government were sanctioned by the EU and the United States in response to their hardline tactics in trying to suppress the protests. Russia is on fire. I made a video about the attacks in Kazan. Now, Kazan is like 800 kilometers, almost 600 miles from Ukraine. And drones struck there in two locations. They struck luxurious apartment buildings. Now, the locals say that there were 6 drones and 3 of them were taken right out with electronic warfare, and that the other 3 were diverted off course. I'm not so sure about that, because those other 3 that are said to have been diverted, 2 of them hit the exact same apartment in the exact same building, moments apart. That sounds to me like that was the target. Because if you were trying to spoof addresses with drones, there's no way that they would land in the same place. That's a virtual impossibility, given the way that technology works. The other drone, so 2 drones impacted an apartment on the 23rd floor of the Azure Skies apartment complex. Luxury apartments, some of the most expensive real estate in Kazan, Russia. Another one of the most expensive pieces of real estate, the Manhattan apartments. Doesn't it grind your gears the way the Russians do everything they can to undermine democratic Western societies, but then they name their luxury apartment complexes after our cities? The Manhattan. $50 a square foot, and in Kazan, that's pricey. So that building was also hit. Now, look, we do not know. And the Russians aren't saying. The Russians are saying there were no casualties and all the drones were disabled with electronic warfare. Clearly, this is not true. Clearly, those apartments were hit. Clearly, I think they were the targets, which means the GUR, military intelligence here, knows who was in those apartments. They know who or what was in those apartments, what the targets were. Now, these apartment complexes are not far from the Alabuga Special Economic Zone in Tatarstan, where the drone factory that makes the Shahed clones is, right? That's where they make the drones. Now, that facility, the warehouse for that facility, was also hit this weekend. And drones flew into the warehouse, burning an estimated $16 million in drone chassis, motors, guidance systems, etc. Right? Everything you need to assemble a Shahed drone was in that warehouse. Enough to make 400 Shaheds. And the place burned to the ground. $16 million in an estimate, according to the Ukrainian military intelligence, an estimated $16 million in drone parts were burned. Russia, over the weekend in Novocherkassk in the Rostov region, a large ammunition depot was hit. The cook-off was quite spectacular. Snap, crackle, and pop for hours. If it's not still burning, it could be. What is still definitely burning, because it's happening right now, I just got this before we went live. The Milarov Air Base in Rostov was hit with some pretty big booms. Now, what hit it, we don't know. Could it have been ATACMS? Yes. Could it have been Storm Shadows? Yes. Could it have been scalps? Yeah. Could it have been missiles or drones of Ukrainian manufacture? Yes. We just do not know, but they were big fucking booms, that's for sure. And though the local authorities reported drone activity and that all drones were shot down, all drones were intercepted, I do rather think that a bunch of these drones were intercepted by their targets. Watching the video, it certainly looks like that's what's going on. And that fire is burning right now. We just got the report of this right before the live. Okay, now on the subject of the North Koreans, a bunch of things to talk about here. The first thing is what we're hearing from South Korean intelligence, and we're seeing evidence of on a train in the Tyumen region of Russia, about 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine. So according to South Korean intelligence, They're saying that North Korea is sending artillery, missiles, troops, more troops, 240 millimeter rocket launchers, and they have ramped up weapons production at 200 facilities inside of North Korea. Some of those facilities are apparently producing one-way attack drones. One-way attack drones. Which is a new thing for North Korea. In terms of the artillery and the missiles that North Korea is supposed to be sending, we got some video out of Russia, out of the Tyumen region of Russia this weekend, that was probably 2 days old. So this information is probably 48 to 72 hours old. Supply train on the Trans-Siberian Railway headed towards Ukraine with 10 Koksan 170 millimeter guns. Now, these are a self-propelled howitzer, and they are the slowest firing howitzer ever recorded. It takes about 5 minutes to load and fire one shell. They have a terrible track record of accuracy. They are very wildly inaccurate. They use a proprietary shell, a 170 millimeter, that the Russian army does not use. So all of those shells have to come from North Korea. And the Russians are happy to turn over lots of food and oil and cash to get what they want, not to mention satellite technology, rocket secrets, and nuclear secrets as well, right? Russians are right there for you, Kim. No problem. Plus, there's 10 of them. With the other 3 that they sent, that's 13. The Russians lose 13 artillery systems a day on a slow day. So this is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. It's certainly not a new capability for the Russian army. But what was particularly of interest, now follow me on this, because what are we being told? What are all the Russian bots telling us? What is the Kremlin telling us? What are they saying that we're supposed to be afraid of now? It's not nuclear weapons anymore, because as Peskov recently said, we have no madmen in the Kremlin. We will never use nuclear weapons first. After 3 years of screaming that they should nuke Lisbon, now they're saying this shit, right? So what is the great boogeyman that Putin is threatening the world with these days? The Oreshnik missile, of course. The hypersonic intermediate range ballistic missile. And he keeps saying stupid things about how he's going to turn Kyiv to dust with his Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missiles, for which, as I understand it, the people in charge have not yet solved the payload problem. Right? It's just an old ballistic missile. Now, Edward, here's the thing. The reality is that if they really had the Oreshniks, shooting them down would be a problem. Here's why. They deploy 6 separate warheads. Each warhead contains 6 separate submunitions or multiple independent reentry vehicles. Because this thing goes straight up right to the edge of space. Then it opens up, the multiple reentry vehicles are released and set on a greater than terminal velocity trajectory to the targets. So what you end up with is 36 incoming targets traveling at 11 times the speed of sound. I don't care who you are. Nobody's got the shit to take out all 36 of those. It's not going to happen. That's a problem for physics. And it's a problem for the Ukrainians, because if Putin had them, he would surely point them at Ukraine, right? Well, the North Koreans are sending him, it appears, at least a half a dozen Pukguksong intermediate range ballistic missiles. So he will very soon, even though he doesn't have the Oreshnik, by all accounts, it does not appear he does. He will very soon have these KN-15s. Norman, you hit it on the head, pal. If you can intercept that rocket on its initial ballistic trajectory, you might have a shot. But you have very little time to do that. The early warning radar, NATO's nuclear early warning radar will pick up the launch of such a ballistic missile. And you will have 12 minutes to respond before it reaches not its apogee, but its highest point of inclination. Hey, Jose Hernandez, long time no see, boy. How you living? Hey, Alex. Hey, Jedi. Jose Hernandez used to hang around a lot. I don't know. For all I know, you still do, pal. I just noticed you tonight. But Jose used to hang around a lot at the beginning, at the very beginning when we were just getting started. So anyway, nice to see you, pal. So these intermediate range ballistic missiles, the KN-15s that the North Koreans are sending, are a problem. Can they infiltrate and take out the train? If they could, I bet they would. So we'll wait and see. Like I said, the video is 48 to 72 hours old, probably. If the train is going 24 hours a day, they're probably close to the Krasnodar logistics point where all the North Korean stuff gets unloaded from the Trans-Siberian Railway. That's a terminal point. What else is going on? So Russia is on fire. No two ways about it. The North Koreans are a problem, and they continue to be a problem, though they are being unmasked every day. So we know that Zelensky said that the North Korean losses are 3,000 plus now. About a third of the initial run of North Koreans have already been taken off the battlefield after 1 week of engaging in active combat duty. In the Kursk region, a number of the North Koreans that have been unalived are in the custody of the Ukrainians. And they are showing us something very interesting. The fake IDs, the fake military IDs that all these guys have been issued, that identify them as being both Russian and of an ethnic group of Southeast Siberian peoples, the Buryat people, mostly from the Tuva region. Now, here's the thing. These military IDs that they got, A, they have no official MOD stamps on them. B, they have no fucking ID picture. There's no photo of the guy. Third, would somebody please show Danny, thank you very much, to the door. Third, some of the guys sign their names in Korean. I mean, that's really the killer for me. Like some of the passport or some of the military IDs are signed in Russian, but some of them are actually signed in Korean. I mean, give me a fucking break. Now, the Ukrainians, for their part, military intelligence is saying it has identified, and they published 3 of these fake IDs and gave the real names of the men. Ban Guk Jin, Lee Dae Hyuk, Cho Choi Ho. According to Ukrainian military intelligence, they made the connection between the phony document and the person's real name through decrypted data. Now, we don't know what that means. Did these guys have cell phones that the Ukrainians decrypted to get this information? Or did they crack the database? Because the Russians have to have a database that matches the phony name that they were given to their Korean name. The Russians have to have that database. What did it mean when Ukrainian intelligence said, from decrypted data, We learned their names. We don't know. But my guess is they've got the database, either from a captured laptop, some Russian officer's laptop, or from a direct attack on military servers, which the Ukrainians have been doing with ongoing regularity, much to the detriment of the Russian army. Okay, December is going to be the bloodiest month for Russia in all likelihood. Last month, we saw 45,000 KIA, WIA removed from the battlefield. It is estimated that in this month alone, with 9 days left of reporting to the month, 34,000 plus have been taken from the battlefield. 34,000 plus. There is the potential for another 18,000 this month, with averages running around 2,000. That is insanity to me. That would be losses in 1 month equivalent to what we had in Vietnam in 16 years. How can they keep this up? How can they keep this up? The Kremlin continues to try to fully militarize Russian society as a whole. In his press conference last Thursday, Putin announced 2025 as the year of the defender of the fatherland, to honor the military heroes of the Ukraine war. This is in conjunction with the Time of Heroes program, which is installing former veterans of the Ukraine war, into local and federal jobs and elected positions, right? He's stacking the government with Ukraine veterans, believing them to be more loyal to him. And he is driving military education and patriotism camps for children. The ISW has said that the Kremlin intends to leverage these camps to instill military and patriotic fervor in a new generation of Russians that it will then supply to its meat grinder in foreign wars. What do you do with people like this? How do you deal with this? And as has often been said, it is only the language of force that the terrorist understands. Now, the Germans have delivered today 15 new Leopard 1A5s, one Iris-T short-range system, one Iris-T intermediate range system, 2 Patriot launchers, 2 more Patriot launchers are always nice, 2 Trammel 4D radars, 2 Gepard anti-aircraft guns, unspecified numbers and types of missiles, drones, various ammunition, grenade launchers, and more. So big thank you to Germany. Not to be outdone, where's our buddy Lars? Norway is going balls to the walls in its support for Ukraine. Norway, I think, is pissed off that Estonia, as a percentage of GDP, donates more to Ukraine than anybody else. And it looks to me like Norway is trying to outdo them. So in 2025, Norway announced both the 2025 package and a plan of long-term comprehensive support for Ukraine. Now, in 2025, aid, a whopping 3 billion euros from Norway. See, Norway knows what the fuck is going on, and they're trying to prepare for it. 3 billion euros in 2025 alone. About 2.3 of it for military and about 700 million for civilian needs. They will also move the Norwegian F-16 training program for Ukrainians to Portugal, in the belief that it is a better location, it offers other benefits, yada, yada, yada. But they're picking up the bill. Norway is picking up the bill for that. As well as outline planned budgetary support through 2030 was announced. This is the kind of look, it's 2025. 2030 is only a 5-year plan now, right? Getting us to 2030 is only a 5-year plan. So it makes good sense that they're doing this. In Kursk, Russia advanced about 900 meters south of Sudza, or claimed to have, and several hundred meters south of Koronivo. So if you think about that salient, they gained a little ground on the left and they gained a little ground on the right, according to the Russians. It is important to point out that the ISW is unable to confirm these claims at this time, but it's what Russia is saying. We are seeing the return of armored vehicle assaults in the Kursk direction. So it looks like what happened was the Ukrainians destroyed all the armored vehicles that the Russians had in Kursk. They had to pull those armored vehicles from somewhere else. I'd like to know where they came from. But they had to pull those armored vehicles from somewhere else. And now they're back in the saddle again in Kursk and getting blown up with the same frequency that they were before. Elements of the 83rd Airborne Brigade and Russian Army combat reserves are now operating there, according to Ukrainian armed forces. In Kyiv, there's lots of attacks, but no progress. In Kupiansk, the Russians made marginal advances toward the city. In Sinkivka, Ukraine repelled an armored column and its infantry. There were no survivors. In Toretsk, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. In Toretsk, right? There's video of this drone following this company of guys on e-scooters, on those stupid little motorized electronic scooters, right? Following them across town, across battlefields, across a moonscape kind of spot until they finally get to their safe house. Well, now the drone knows where they all are. There were no survivors of the 1488th Mechanized Scooter Brigade. Offensive actions continue up and down the front line, with as many as 250 attacks by the Russians in the last 24 hours. Small advances near Pokrovsk, where a column of pickup trucks, led by one sporting a USSR flag, was destroyed. Column of pickup trucks, about 15 trucks, about 100 men. There were few to no survivors. In West Zaporizhia, Ukraine has reclaimed some territory. But we are concerned about what appears to be a buildup for an assault on Kherson. 4,000 assault troops have been mobilized and 300 boats have been secured on the left bank of the Dnipro River. We saw a probing attack last week where 2 infiltration groups were eliminated before they could cross the river, trying to set up a bridgehead in the shadow of the Antonivsky Bridge. Now, 4,000 troops to cross the Dnipro River and take the city of Kherson with a population of 50,000. That doesn't sound like something you could do. It does sound like something the Russians might try, but it doesn't sound like something you could do. So some analysts are suggesting that this is a diversion, that it is a deception, The Russians have no real intent to go into Kherson, but rather they are trying to force the Ukrainians to pull reserves from other locations like Zaporizhia, where it is said that they have assembled 119,000 men for an aggressive attack on Zaporizhia city. That might be the next winter offensive that we see. Okay. Now, guys, hold on to your hats, because today I showed video. I made a video, rather, of a drone, a ground drone, a ground like reconnaissance drone, going out into the battlefield to pick up a dropped hexacopter, a flying drone, and bring it back to the shop where it could be repaired and used again. And the whole thing was filmed using a drone. It's amazing. It's an amazing world we're living in. Now, dig this. According to the Ukrainians, up in the Kyiv region, they organized the first, are you ready for this? Put this in your lexicon. Put this in your vocabulary, because we're going to hear this phrase more in the future. The Ukrainians launched an all-robot combined arms operation. An all-robot combined arms operation. They had the, the PW 12.7s. Those are the ones with the mounted machine gun, right? They had dozens of those, plus dozens of aerial drones. And they went in and they cleaned out a bunch of Russian positions successfully. They won. The machines won. Now, this is all according to the Ukrainians. We're not getting a lot of information on this from the Russians. Of course not, because it's hugely embarrassing to be the first human army to lose to machines. Now, of course, they didn't really lose to the machines. The machines are all FPV driven. So there's a human operator behind each of them. But that guy is safe 10 kilometers away, outside the range of shelling. That's the difference. That is the difference. The Ukrainian Prosecutor's General's office has accused the Russians of summary execution of 5 more POWs over the weekend. That brings to a total 147 POWs that the Russians have executed in contravention of all international law and rules of war. It is important to point out that of the 147 POWs executed by Russia, 127 of them were this year, 2024. It is this year that the reports of these war crimes have skyrocketed. It's an L shape on the line chart. Finally, I see Clay Fries here. Good, Clay, because you're really going to love this. The Russian MOD today claimed that they have destroyed 30 Patriot batteries. 30 Patriot batteries since the start of the war. 30 Patriot batteries. The Ukrainians have never had anywhere close to 30 Patriot batteries, though God knows we could use them. So, interesting to me. Anyway, Merry Christmas, Sammy. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ear, fellow travelers. I want to send out a big thank you to, I'm so sorry. I just said it before. That is so embarrassing. I'm so sorry. Oh, Lars from Encino Tech. Oh, I'm so sorry, Lars. Hey, Joe. Lars from Encino Tech, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Lars. Big thanks to the moderator team, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, Jay, and Travis. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and to Lars, who has the Alexievich archive and the Discord server. So, ladies and gentlemen, questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need. What would you like to talk about? Aside, this channel is really very highly focused on Ukraine. Unless it affects Ukraine, I don't pay attention to it. I have a hard enough time keeping up with Ukraine. So I have not read about Assad's stolen gold, though it's my understanding he left the country with $135 billion of looted money. Did I keep any cookies for myself? So, Clay, I did kind of overbake on the peanut butters. In the end, I had like maybe 60 peanut butters left that everybody that I was sending to had enough peanut butters. So I've got like 60 peanut butters in the freezer. I want to say to everybody who's supported the cookie thing, it's been very successful. So big thanks to Arn, Gabor, Cheyenne, Vanetta, James Boudreau, and Chris Carter, who all supported the cookie initiative. We have so far sent 2,500 cookies to 8 different positions on the front, including the storied Edelweiss Brigade, the American Legion, 1st Battalion, 2nd Company, the American Legion, I'm not American Legion, I'm sorry, International Legion, 1st Battalion, 2nd Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Company, to a medical supply point or like emergency triage kind of place up on the Sumy border. So they're handling Kursk medical situations. And to some guys in the Kyiv direction and to a GUR group in the Kyiv direction. And I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, those guys out in the middle of nowhere that nobody's supposed to know about. Right, those guys too. Got some. Some of them did get Christmas. We did not get Christmas cards for everybody. I confess, I failed on that. But 2 of the groups, the American Legion 1st and 2nd Battalions, both got Christmas cards from the kids, yes. Now, the Edelweiss group also got some trench candles. I managed to find some trench candles somebody had, and we shipped them the trench candles as well. So, look, guys, it is, baking some cookies and sending them to some guys is literally the least I could do. And, for the guys that guard us in our sleep. So, exactly. I hope that it does some good. I hope that it gives them a little boost. And we'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, as far as my plans, I am not having dinner here. I was going to. Things changed. I was invited somewhere else. And so I'm going to go there for dinner. But guys, the Live at 5 is on at midnight, right after curfew is over, or has begun rather. And I set it at midnight my time so that I would always be home for it. I have to be, curfew. So I don't see any reason to take a break. So if anybody wants to hang out on Christmas Eve tomorrow or on Christmas Day, in all likelihood, I would be here. I believe God willing, inshallah, I will be here. All right, Baby Yoda. I like your name. Now, I saw another good question. I did see a good question scroll by. Hold on. Clay asked, do they do anything special on Christmas for the frontline Ukrainians? Clay, I don't know. I personally don't know. Christmas here is not the big thing that it is for us in America. It's not. It's really not. I threw a party last year on the 24th and like 30 people came. So for them, it was just another Wednesday. So Christmas is not the same for them as it is for us. New Year's here is the big deal. So I don't know what they do for the frontline guys. Look, it doesn't look like the Russians are going to give them a break. So there isn't time to do much of anything. That's why for the few people we could get some cookies to, I feel good about it. Jonas Sugar got kicked off TikTok. We're all going to get kicked off TikTok. Bobby, I said Assad took out of the country $135 billion. Yeah, the days of dictators getting away with a few hundred million, those days are over. Now they're getting away with hundreds of billions while their people starve. What do you think about North Korea sending the bigger bombs? I think, Pedro, it proves that Russia doesn't have the Oreshnik. It wouldn't need to beg North Korea for intermediate range ballistic missiles if it had them. That's what I think. Bro Dog, have there been many North Korean defectors? We don't know for sure. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of apocryphal kind of stories going around of North Koreans slipping out of camp at night and being found 6 weeks later living with a Russian woman in a village somewhere, right, fixing the car and cleaning the carburetor and chopping firewood and stuff and giving it to his Russian mama every night. Those stories are real. We hear those stories. How real they are is yet to be determined. And how pervasive it is yet to be determined. Cold Sunshine, we don't know. We just don't know. The Ukrainians carefully guard their casualties. You could extrapolate, right? If it's 43,000 KIA, as Zelensky said recently, and it's 1,000 days of war, then that's about 43 a day. It's about 43 a day. Which this country cannot afford. Kyiv is a beautiful city at Christmas. I mean, it's a beautiful city all the time, frankly. Some North Koreans are staying warm. Some are, brother, apparently, yeah. Oh, Julian, I don't think that's true. I don't think North Koreans speak English. I mean, I don't think he educates them at all. The less educated they are, the better for him. Good night, Nightshade. Good night, everybody. Well, it's about that time. Again, I want to thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Lars from Encino Tech. Thanks to the moderator team, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, Jay, and Travis. Thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. And guys, if I can make a plea, it is Christmas. If anybody can see their way to join the Patreon, maybe, if for $45, I think you can get a year's subscription at the $5 a month rate. A couple of those would help me out at Christmas. or maybe sponsor a live. The PayPal is in the bio there. But I sure would love it if some folks would join the live or join the Patreon or sponsor some lives. The electricity costs here are extraordinary this year. With good reason, I get it. We all know why we're suffering. But they're where they were, like where my heating bills last year and everything were about $100 a month. It's looking like it's going to be $200 this month. It's bad. It's not good. But the lights are on, so we have that to be thankful for. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out, and I want to wish everybody the very happiest of holidays. To you and to your friends, Merry Christmas, Eli. Merry Christmas, Clay. The weather has been seasonal here in Kyiv. Happy holidays, V. I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year. And for all those celebrating solstice or Hanukkah or any other holiday at this time of the return of the light, right? We just had the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Merry Christmas, Norton. Merry Christmas, Bro Dog. Happy holidays, PT. Merry Christmas, Cheyenne. Nana Pam, happy holidays. I am not having a party this year. Thanksgiving took a lot out of me. The cookie project has taken a lot out of me. And, I meant to say, we shipped 2,500 cookies, 2 dozen loaves of fresh baked bread, a box of trench candles, and I've got 500 cookies left for New Year's. So we're going to make the 3,000. So thank you, everybody that supported it. Mike Ryan tried to get in on the action, but the project was fully funded by the time he sent his money. So I don't know, Mike, if you're here, but last night you were the sponsor of last night's live. Thank you, pal. Hey, Robert Chapman. Merry Christmas, VIP Red. Merry Christmas, Little Red Sunflower. Merry Christmas, Daniel Ballard. Happy holidays to all, and to all a good night. Thanks for tuning in, Ed. And for anybody I missed, I'm sorry. I'm really legitimately sorry, because this time of year I don't like to leave anybody out. Ah, that's you, Mike. Oh, okay. Good. You know, the handle here and the handle there are different. So I didn't really know which Mike. Now I do. Good. So yeah, thanks, Mike. The Festivus for the rest of us. Now let the time of complaints begin. All right, kids. Make it a great day. I'll talk to you all soon. Oh, Daniel, thank you so much. I cannot wait to get, because I'm pretty sure my brown, winter coat is in, like the long, trench coat is in there. And the barn coats, I can't wait to get the barn coats, pal. Thank you so much. Let me know if you need any help or whatever. But it's a big deal. I could really use the clothes. Thank you. Good night, Bobby. Merry Christmas to you and Blanca and everybody, your whole crew. Merry Christmas, Laurel. Good night, Chef Deb. Thanks for liking the live, everybody. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Blessed Yule, Chef Deb, and a sacred solstice to all. Good night, kids.